everyone, it's your Go Brain Shanae, and today is my stop for the Color Pages tour, and it's going to be for Blood Scion by Deborah Falaye. Now, I'm going to be quite honest, I am so excited to do this book review. This is one of my anticipated reads of 2022, and I fell in love with this book instantly. Now, I will let you know there are some content warnings of sexual assault, which it does say at the very beginning of the book before you get to read it, which it does say, which I'll read right here. It says, "This book is inspired by the real-life horrors endured by child soldiers and the war on children in particular, and therefore tackles themes of war, violence, and sexual assault. Please read with care." So it does provide that at the very beginning of the book. That way you're aware of the content warnings within this book. Now, let's go ahead and get started with this book review. So, we are following a girl named Sloan. She just turned 15 and she's trying to figure out where her mother is. Her mother has been gone and has disappeared for 2 years. And so during this time, there is this army called the Lucius, where they pretty much attack anyone that sounds or looks Yoruba and is a blood scion. Now, during this time, as in the very beginning of the book, she is digging. She has a shovel and digging and digging and digging, trying to see if she can find her mother or any sign of her mother, if she's gone, if she's dead, or if she's alive. And at this time, that's when she's being attacked by a night walker. And instantly I'm thinking in my head, like Terminator, because that's how she describes the night walker to being, as someone, you know, full of metal and stuff like that. So that's what I'm like, when I think of night walker in my head, I'm thinking of Terminator, the movie. So she's being attacked, but she was able to get away. But she use her powers because she is also a blood scion, but she tries not to show her powers because they are looked down upon. People are scared of them, and as soon as someone knows that she is a blood scion, they will report it to the Lucius, and the Lucius will kill her instantly, without a doubt, with no questions asked. It's an instant thing. So as she gets away from the night walker, she ends up going to her village, where she takes care of her best friend named Luna, and also she's with her grandfather. And you know, during this time, she and her grandfather and Luna are pretty much in the slums. They're in the slums, and they're trying to figure out how they can live, how they can survive, what are they going to eat the next day. And of course, like I said, she just turned 15. That was her birthday. And then the exact day, she ends up getting a letter saying that she is being drafted or redrafted, because during this time there is a war with the Lucius and with the rebellion. And so the Lucius, that's why they have these children soldiers, but they don't know that she's a blood scion, and her grandfather is very, very scared and concerned about what's going to happen when she goes to do her test or whatever in order to be drafted into the Lucius army. And before even the Lucius army, there were the world where she's in, they were ruled by Orishas, all the different gods and goddesses. But then the Lucius come into the picture, and they pretty much killed everyone. It was complete genocide. And so they're still doing that to this day, but now they're using children soldiers. So now she's being redrafted. But before she does that, she gets to visit her best friend named Tio, who also, they end up confessing how much they love one another, and how Tio and her should run away. But even instantly, if you run away and you are to be drafted, you're instantly exiled, like you're killed for being a deserter. Instantly killed. No type of just punishment. No, you're done. And so, you know, Tio was like, well, we need to do this. We need to run away so that way we can go live in the free country, because within this world, there is some countries that are free of the Lucius, and they're able to live in peace and live happily. But they can't do that, because if they try to run away and get caught, they're dead. So Tio still decides to make this decision to run away, even though Sloan is also letting him know, like, he shouldn't do this. But he does it anyway. So at that time, this is when Sloan is going to be drafted, and she takes these tests and everything, and that's when the Lucius come in and they test her loyalty. And for them to test their loyalty, they bring someone in, either a relative, a loved one, anyone that is close to you, or a family member, anything. And they bring them in. They hand you a gun, and they tell you to shoot them. And that's what Sloane had to do in order to prove her loyalty to the Lucis. That's what you had to do in order to be in the army. If you didn't do that, you are also dead on sight. Sloane had to make a big decision, and a decision that will stay with her for the rest of her life. But she had to do it in order to survive. And as she is proving her loyalty, she ends up finding things out that things weren't brought into the open. I'm not going to tell you who they brought in that room for her to test her loyalty, but let's just say I did not see that coming. It was very unexpected. It wasn't predictable. And the secrets that came out was just wow. Like, wow. And so that's why they chose that specific person for her to kill. So she passed the test to prove her loyalty. Then she moves on. So they end up having all the children soldiers, and they take them to a fort on an island called Fort Regulus, where they are being trained on a daily basis, learning combat, tactics, all that. And during this time when she is training and stuff like that, it reminds me of the movie Divergent in a sense, where you have Triss and then you have Four. So that's what it sort of reminds me of, because even though they were drafted and they're being sent to the Fort Regulus to fight, the recruits are still fighting one another, which also reminds me of Hunger Games, where they are into a certain phase, because there are certain phases within this training that they're in Fort Regulus, and they pretty much have to, with whoever survives, survivor of the fittest, and they are up against one another. So that also reminds me of Hunger Games. So that's what happens. But then during the time when she is training, she pretty much has allies, because she still wants to find out what happened to her mother. That's like her biggest concern in her task. The one thing is why she was so she easily, did what she had to do in order to get drafted, in order to be at Fort Regulus. She wanted to figure out where her mother was, or where she disappeared to, or if she had died, when did she die, or when she was killed. And she was able to develop allies and friendship with Nazanin, Jericho, and Amaya. And within that alliance, she also met Dane, who is also part of Lucius' army. And you sort of get this sense of like Dane sort of has some type of feelings for her, which you would think how he would act towards her, how he would vouch towards her, or he would do something where she would get less of a punishment and, make it less of a thing for her. So he does that on occasion in this book. So it makes you think like, okay, Dane is on her side, is on Sloane's side, and he just wants her to survive and wants her to make it, which he does want her to make it, but he has his reasons and he has his motives, which I didn't know that. Like, literally everybody has a motive in this book, and you just don't know what motive that is, or if it's for the Blood Scions, or if it's for the rebellion, or whatever. You don't know. But her friends that she has made, like Nazanin, Jericho, and Amaya, they end up making a plan in order to get the Book of Records. The Book of Records is where they can find out what happened to their family members or their friends, to see what had happened to them. And Sloane comes across the page of her mother, but her name is changed. And she was part of this whole new type of army or type of division where Sloane was very confused about. She didn't know that her mother was also in the Lucis army. She was really concerned. She's like, my mother didn't bring this up to me. She didn't tell me anything about that, nothing. Even her mother didn't even really tell her much about her father, except that her father passed. But then again, she ends up meeting her true father, which is another, this book just blew my mind. Literally blew my mind, because like I said, this book is not predictable. You have to read it through. There's no way, it just all this stuff came out of nowhere. You have people that you thought were loyal to you, but they weren't. They were traitors. They had only one motive, and that was to pretty much get you to show who you are, your strengths and stuff like that. And then on top of that, Sloane finds out who killed her mother, and it is Olympia, Queen Olympia, who is in control of the Lucis, and tells them, kill all the Blood Scions, do this and do that. So that's where Sloane comes in, and she wants vengeance. She's on a rampage. She wants to get to Olympia and kill her. And then whatever happens to her, it happens to her. And Sloane knows that she'll never see her friend Luna, T.O., or her grandfather ever again. Once she was drafted, that was it. She won't see her family or her friends ever again. So she's like, okay, I'm going to do what I got to do. And if I die, I die. But at the same time, like I said, people have their motives. And we find out Dane has their motives. And a lot of the commanders and captains in the Lucius army had motives of their own. They also wanted to get rid of Queen Olympia and her reign. And in order to do that, they end up using Sloane because they find out that they know and they had a feeling that she was a blood scion, which she has the power of fire, by the way, which I meant to, mention that as well. Blood of fire, or excuse me, magic of fire from the god Shango, who is an Orisha. So you have to keep that in mind. She has the power of fire. So Dane and some of the other people know this, and they use this to this advantage. So the division that Sloane's mother was in, that's where Dane and the commanders were in as well, to try to infiltrate the Lucius within the Lucius army, right? So they use Sloane. They end up using Sloane. Sloane realized that she was used, and it was only for their benefit and not her own. And now you have Dane, who is definitely not for Sloane. Never was, just wanted to use her. And pretty much after what she did, what they wanted her to do in the first place, that's when she realized she messed up. She made the wrong decision because she was a puppet this entire time without even knowing. I didn't even know until within the last few pages of this book. I did not know. And throughout this book, it had me on a whirlwind of what just happened? That's her mother? Seriously? It blew my mind. And I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars because it is that good. If I had to choose 2 books that I feel like is a good comparison, I would say The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna and Beast of Prey by Ayana Gray. That's what this book gives me, Blood Scion. It gives me all those feels. It gives me all those vibes, but it gives you a whole lot more than that. And it has Orisha gods and goddesses in this book, which I love, 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 love. Gods and goddesses, I'm all for it. This book gave me life, filled with a lot of mystery. It kept you thinking about who is this, who is that, why are they doing this, who is, why, what's the whole point of this, why are they doing this specifically at this time. So I really, really enjoyed this book. Like I said, a 5 out of 5 stars, because I have no type of complaints about this book whatsoever. It is really good. It is really fast paced. It gives you information about the world as well. And the characters are amazing. I love this book, and I want to read the second book because we know there's going to be another book. I don't know if it's a series or duology, but I need it now in my life because this book was great. I need to know what happens to Sloane. I need to know what happens to the world in general. But on top of everything else, I love the fact that Sloane considered herself worthy enough. Because at the beginning of the book, she hated being a blood scion because blood scions were considered unworthy and unworthy to live and unworthy to be in this world or be in the same space as anyone, especially the Yorubas. They were considered unworthy because someone felt that they are unworthy because of the powers that they have and that they were given by the deity. And I love the fact that she, like I said, that she now at the very end of the book and towards the middle, she knew that she was worthy and that she had these powers for a reason and not for nothing. And it made me think of me as a kid and not seeing myself in books at the time and how I felt unworthy and that my hair just didn't match what society wanted me to, that society thought my hair should be. And when I think of Sloane, I think of that's how she was at the beginning, but in a different way, of course, and because this is a different world. But then again, she embraced who she was. and she accepted it. And she accepted the fact that she's a blood scion and that this was a gift. This was a gift, and that she needed to use her gift and no longer hide it from the world. And that's the aspect that I love the most about this book, of you being worthy enough, of you being good enough, regardless of what society may say or act towards you. So yes, a 5 out of 5 stars for Blood Scion. Deborah Falaye has done an incredible job. The writing is beautiful. The world is beautiful. I like the aspect of this book overall in general. And it even breaks down about, you know, like I said at the beginning, before Sloane was even born, of how the Orishas ruled Najee. That's what's called, the Najee. But then the Lucius came in and decided to take over because they were on a vengeance, because they felt like blood scions should not be living amongst them and shouldn't be above them, and they should be below them, and they shouldn't be living, period. Which during this time, which I mentioned genocide, they called it the Great Cleansing. And so can you imagine, like, if you lived like that in Sloane's world, and you know about these events like the Great Cleansing and the genocide, and you're a blood scion, and she feels like yeah, I'm not worthy because, you know, nobody wants me around. Obviously I'm nothing, I'm nobody, I'm nothing, I'm not, you know. So like I said, I love the fact that she finds herself, she knows who she is, she accepts who she is, and then she ends up flourishing because she knows what she has to do. But at the end of the day, she was also used as a puppet, and she did not know that to the very end, which is why I need the second book. Because I think this was a big learning step for Sloane on knowing who and when to trust someone, or if they're loyal to you, or how you can tell if someone is for you and not for you. So yes, a 5 of 5 stars for Blood Scion. Like I said, I really, really enjoyed this book. It gave me, like I said, the Gilded Ones, and it gave me the Beasts of Prey type of vibes. And then also what I mentioned too, like Divergent and Hunger Games. It has all those aspects within this book, within this one book. So I'm not steering you wrong. This is a great book. You need to pick it up. So I definitely recommend this book. But yes, a 5 of 5 stars for Deborah Falaye for Blood Scion. I give this high praise, so I really hope that you pick this book up. I really hope you enjoyed this book review. I wanted to be authentic because I really love this book, and I'm not hyping it up just because. I really 100% love this book, and I highly recommend it. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you, and I hope you all are staying healthy and staying safe. See ya.